on my channel. So what's going on my stream? I think that living here, I want to do live streams and things about it. So once again, welcome or watching in the future. Welcome to my first live stream and the first episode of Friday Night Insomniacs. Um, if you're in the pack of the ice storm, I pray you're indoors, that you're warm, that you have some good snacks. Okay? My name is Anita Hanan. I'm a nurse, a restorative energy practitioner, and I'm a self-employed communications consultant. Last year, I moved to San Miguel, Allende, Mexico, with my husband and my two cats. But this video is not about that. So I just want to let you know that it's a little bit about that, but it's not really about that. So I have my notes. I just want to make sure I touch on everything tonight. So before I get started, I just want to do a little housekeeping and say who this video is for and who it is not. This video is for my ADOS, ADOS, FBA, Soulaan, down and up south babies. If your people were here before America was America and American, as it is in its present, welcome. So just welcome those people in. If you are not one of those people that I just mentioned, ADOS, FBA, Soulaan, down and up south babies, people were here before America was a country. And if you've ever fixed your mouth to try and son or say what those people are not going to get, you're not an ally, this video is not for you. Okay, you can just scroll on. Okay. Especially if you have never spoken about the things that people that maybe the community that you come from do that are front to Black life here in America. You never make videos, or I don't see anything on your timeline about that little funny looking man in Michigan that was talking about Black history should be done away with. You know, saying make white people feel uncomfortable, or that man that's an ex criminal running for governor, or the little crunchy haired lady that's full on MAGA. You haven't uttered a word about that, but you have so much to say about my people. It's not for you. I just want you to scroll on. But if you consider yourself an ally, I just want you to know that it's time now for accomplices. I hear a lot of talk about how what's going on now can be compared to 1930s Germany, what's going on in the United States. And it's as if people don't want to acknowledge or admit that they learned from what was going on and what America did to my people. So if you have a willful ignorance, or it just sounds good to you because you don't want to seem like you're siding with certain people, scroll on is not for you. Okay? Now, this is for my people who are not leaving America. I don't care what your reason is. I don't care if it's because your family's a military family and you fancy yourself a fighter, or if you like, even if you just like your job or your business or your house. If you feel like America owes us reparations and you want to stay there and fight and be on the front lines, whatever your reason is for choosing to stay, I don't care. You can wake up tomorrow and decide you want to leave tomorrow. As a human being, it's your right to do that. As an American, it's your right to do that. So that's not what we're talking about tonight. So just know that you're right to your rights. This is a sun-free zone. When I say sun-free, I mean SON. I'm not here to belittle anybody, but to tell you what you should do. Okay. But my question tonight is, how are we and you, how are we building community in the face of everything that's going on in the United States? We know that what's going on in the United States will eventually affect the world, but how are we dealing with that? And how are you building community in the face of that? It doesn't matter if you are American, natural born American, or if you are a naturalized American and you consider yourself an accomplice. I want to know, how are you building capacity on this podcast saying, hey, 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 hey. So just say hi. And also, I want you to drop, it's a group project tonight. And as the project leader, I'm going to give a few tips. But I also want you guys to put in the chat now or in the future, how are you building community? We're not going to be here long, but I just like this is a conversation that we need to have, because let's just say if things go back to the same, let's just say if there's a midterm and we have this new tsunami and things go back to status quo and nothing changes. Hey, at least we have taken time to build community. So that's what I really want to I can talk about tonight. Okay. So like I said, it's a group project. So I just want you to drop in the chat or in the future, how are you building community? And please know the things that I'm mentioning tonight are not new. These are things that I just grew up seeing, things that I've done as an adult, and things that I learned as far as emergency preparedness and being a nurse. So feel free to bring your whole self to the discussion. Like I said, it's a loving, sun-free zone. And I ask that we center ourselves in this conversation and we think about how our people have moved historically in the United States. Okay, so I just want you to think about that. Stephanie Perry, the co-founder of Exodus Summit, which is one of my clients for full disclosure, has been doing a video series about the next great migration and Black people leaving the United States. As someone who lives outside the U.S., my mother was born in the Jim Crow South. My grandparents migrated during the Great Migration. I and we all know that everyone didn't leave the South. Just like we're not all going to leave America, and if we leave, we may not stay gone. So how many of us return to the South to go to HBCUs, or just return just to buy homes or for jobs? Who families probably never lived in the South or did live in the South, and we moved. Houston and like Atlanta experienced like really big booms in population of people returning to the South. So that's just something to think about. So let's go get it. And let's just talk about a few ways that we can build community at home and abroad and how we can bridge the two as needed. That's our history too. So we're not doing anything new. We just have to remember and move out on what we know and learn what we don't know and fill in the gaps and just look back to our people. So in framing this so it doesn't become overwhelming, I just wanted to kind of focus on like a small micro level. I want you to think about your immediate family, extended family, and then you can branch out to your neighborhood, your faith communities, etc. And then I just talk and how we move in relationship to actual people, not just social media. Like think about the people that you actually touch in your daily lives. Social media is a tool, but we also have to think about how we're touching people in our daily lives. So one of the ways that we can think about how we build community is communication. And like I said, not just on social media. You can start where you are in your neighborhoods or your faith communities. And think about how you will collect information. A lot of times we depend on our phones a lot. I know for myself, there are very few of my family members whose numbers I know and can know by heart and just can recite. So how are we communicating with people, not just on social media, but off social media and people that we're touching every day? Okay. Who knows who, and who knows how we'll communicate in case there's an outage, like with Verizon, how we're communicating with ourselves. with each other and ourselves and our family if there's an outage. So those are things to think about. The solution is not going to be the same for anybody. If you have information about how to do this, and number two I have is what experts or professionals and skilled people do you have in your family and or in your community? Who is willing to work in case there is an emergency? Okay, because a lot of times we wait until things happen and then we're like, where are the resources? Where are the people? And we're trying to pull things together. But if that's something that we're planning before that happens, think about that in those terms. Like, where are the resources and who are the people who know how to use these resources? Who can we get together? That could be nurses, doctors, electricians, carpenters, different types of tradespeople, manual laborers too, because you're going to need people who can move things physically from place to place, whether it be objects or people. Okay? You want to ID, number three I have is ID vulnerable populations. That could be children, seniors, people with disabilities, and know what their needs are just in case of an emergency. Okay? Then you want to identify local resources before they're needed. How can you set up mutual aid and share supplies if needed? It can be anything from food and medical supplies to different resources that you may need. It could be clothing, whatever you need. And like I say, this is worst case scenario. Okay, this is not like we're going about our everyday lives. But since everybody's like, oh, the world is on fire, things are changing. I'm not saying it's not on fire. I'm not saying things are not rapidly changing. But these are things that we need to be thinking about. Okay. In addition to mutual aid and sharing supplies, how will you evacuate if you need it and wherever you go? Who has room to take people in? So we have to think about those things. And I'm not talking about Airbnbs, I'm not talking about hotel stays. I'm saying it's the middle of the night, something happens, middle of the day. People are in harm's way. Think of it in terms of like a natural disaster. And or someone has a fire and they call you and they say, hey, I need to come over tonight. Where are you going to put people? Do you have extra blankets? Do you have extra food? Do you have a change of clothes? Doesn't have to fit, doesn't have to be the prettiest clothes. Or do you have supplies just in case someone needs to go, okay, or come to your home? And how do you connect with and build relationships with people outside the country? That's one of the things that I think about too. With you in the United States, in Mexico and Canada, our neighbors, we're all neighbors to each other. Our borders touch, our borders kiss. So think about people who you may know. And if you don't know anybody, how do you get in communication with those people? Like I said, you may want to move abroad. You may not want to move abroad. You may move abroad, you may come back. You may be like, I ain't never leaving. That's fine. Like I said, bring your full self. This is a sun-free zone. It's your right to stay in America. It's your home. If our people built it, if you want to be there, that's up to you. But how are we going to get in communication with people just in case you do have to move or leave or go somewhere? Like I said, worst case scenario. How are we connecting with those people? And then I also want to talk a little bit about getting your papers in order as part of your emergency preparedness plan. This includes several copies of your birth certificates. I know that in January of last year, right around inauguration, people were at places lined up to get copies of all their papers just in case something happened. So think about that. Think about how are you going to get copies of those papers and where are you going to keep them? You're going to need multiple copies, and this is just something you should do regardless of what's going on. You should always have multiple copies of the original, which is the state copy or the county copy, whoever your issuing entity is, of your birth certificates. You can get multiple copies of your social security card. You can have a driver's license and a state ID or real ID. If you don't have a passport and a passport card, get your passport and your passport card. Okay? You want to have those, you want to have international travel documents just in case you want to visit or if you have to visit somewhere. And I don't know what the percentage is. I should look it up. I'll share it in the future of our people who do not have passports and who don't travel internationally. Even if you are not planning on taking a trip, get your passport. Okay, get your passport card. Even if you don't plan, even if you don't have anything planned. A lot of times we like to wait until we have a vacation planned or something. Go ahead and get that anything in the chat. Hey, hey Lisa, thank you for being here tonight. Like I said, if you guys can think of any ways that you have built community or that you desire to build community, any steps or any tips or anything you have, just leave it in the comments, okay? I really want to kind of build out and talk about this because, like I said, many of us are not going to leave, and we need to be talking about these things anyway. I know in my faith community, this is something that we talk about. We talk about forever, as far as being prepared, disaster preparedness, having things that you need, having your go bags. People laugh and people say, "Oh, store food in your house. Keep your beans, do this, do that." Baby, it's an ice storm coming. Did you go out to the grocery store today and get you some things? When that ice storm was in Texas, didn't you go out? Don't the people some people wish they would have went out and got some things? So people laugh because it's easy to laugh when the weather's good. It's easy to laugh when nothing's going on. I'm in Mexico right now. We just moved here. I'm building out my emergency preparedness now, getting things that we need now, thinking about my to go back now. So think about those things, you know. And when you get your papers, get your fireproof safe, get a fireproof bag, because if you're moving out in an emergency, a fireproof safe can be heavy. A fireproof bag is something you can throw in your to-go bag and you can go. Okay, that's lots of places where you can get fireproof bags. So just do a little research on it. Okay, and one of the reasons that I moved and how I began to think about just how I framed it for myself, it wasn't because like I was like, oh, they're going to make us into slaves. They're going to do this because that's always a threat, especially when they want to activate us. They start saying stuff like, "You next, you next." Baby, we've been next. We've been on the menu from the beginning. Like ever since we got here, we was on the menu. They'll put people up in front who look just like us to keep us on the menu, to sun us, and all type of crazy stuff that we know that goes on. So it's not. So it wasn't even about that for me. It was about. There was several reasons. One of them was I needed to be in a warmer climate for my health. I needed space to do the things that I wanted to do that I loved, and like one of the things as far as like the political environment now, it's like, okay, I need to be somewhere where if my family needs to get to me to leave, they can leave. A place for my people to go. So those are the things that I considered. And even when I moved, even like in picking my home here, everything, I thought about things like that. Like, do we have extra room? Can we house people? And this is family, whether it's blood or chosen family. These are the things that I thought about. So I always wanted to live abroad. I'm just going to tell a little bit of my Exodus story. I always wanted to live abroad when I was younger. So it was in Europe. When I started attending Exodus Summit, I think it was back maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. Um, I attended the summit. I enjoyed the programming. I took a challenge that they had. So I was like, oh, I'm going to approach them and see if they can be one of my clients for my consulting firm. So I started working with them. Everything was great. I would go back. I would work the summits. So about in 2024, Stephanie Rashida asked me if I wanted to be work with them to start Exodus ASAP. So I said sure. So I came on to community manager for Exodus ASAP. They were doing caravans to get residency from Mexico, and I was like, you know what? I qualify for this. I'm gonna go. Well, I went, got Mexican residency. My husband and I had talked about moving abroad. We thought it was going to be Panama. Ended up not being Panama. I got the residency. I said, oh, well, let me try Mexico on the side since I had this residency. My husband was retiring, came down, rented a house, got rid of my stuff, and finally moved last year in November. So that's my Exodus story, and that is kind of like what I wanted to think about. Like, We don't have to leave. We don't have to have a reason for wanting to stay. We don't have a reason for wanting to go. Maybe we're grown. We can do whatever we want to do. We are full-throated Americans. If we decide we want to go and come as we please, we can do all of that. So whatever your reason is for leaving, let it be your reason. Let it make sense for you. If it's your reason for staying, you don't need a reason. You at home. Live your life. Just start thinking about things like emergency preparedness. And like I said, this is the worst case scenario. If nothing else happen, things go back to status quo. Hey, we all just be living our life going back and forth. Okay. Okay. Let's see what you guys saying in the chat. So Beyond the Sun podcast, thank you for being here. It says congratulations, your group. I really appreciate this opportunity to deliver. Think about the topic of international community building and connection. Yeah, we really need to think about it. And like I said, this is not new to us. When we think about the Underground Railroad and people going to Canada, we think about people coming down to Mexico, living down here. That's why there are so many communities of people that look like us. This is not new information. But we have to start thinking about it in terms of this because everybody's not going to leave. And like people say, oh, well, just leave. Girl, is your mama there? Can you leave with your 90-something-year-old granny? Yeah, there are places that you can take abroad. But would your 90-year-old granny want to go? And would you want to travel? Those are things that we have to think about. And because it is home and sometimes it is easier, those are things that we have to think about. Shatina said she attended Exorcism in 2025. Yeah, that was moving for Broadway. That was a good one. I'm still catching replays on that. Now that I have the space and the time to kind of sit down and do some things as I work and build out my practice and my business, I rewatch those replays. It's so worth it. So just remember the people that you love. People, if you watch the news and if you listen to people and if you don't curate your social media, people will have you running around with your hair on fire. Don't do that. That don't serve anything. Spend some time with your family. Love up on your family. Read some good books. If you want to write. If you want to go places, if you want to travel, if you want to do, be smart about what you do and move strategically. Because we have to do that anyway, just based on who we are. We got to move strategically, just based on our history. But think about those things and just live your life, and don't let anybody scare you. Don't let anybody son you, telling you what you need to do or where you need to go. Like I said, we all adults. You got that blue passport. You're a full-throated American. You move accordingly for what is good for you and what's going on. But always think in terms of building community. So I want to thank you for being here for the first episode of Friday Night Insomniacs. And I hope that you watch in the future. I had a couple people text me and say, why are you going on so late? Why did you choose Friday night? And like I said, growing up, Friday night was like a big deal for us. Like we would either like have delivery or takeout. We go to a movie, we rent some movies, watch TV, stay up late. I used to always listen to like community focused radio shows. And of course, we know that the Communications Act under the good old Bill Clinton, that did away with a lot of our community radio. So I've always wanted to do things like that. So that hopefully this can be like an extension of that. And if there are topics that you want me to discuss, you can leave it in the comments, things that you're interested in talking about. There's a lot going on right now. If I talk about a hair on fire subject, I want to offer solutions for it and just things and steps that we can do. And I want it to be a conversation. So if you like it, just please like and subscribe so you don't miss any program channeling. And I just want to say good night, family. And remember, as one of our historians said, whether you agree with his position or not, we don't owe anybody nothing but an ass whooping. So have a good night, and I hope to see you later. Take care, everybody.